okay, maybe you may understand something about, tribal sentiments or nepotism or something, things like that. People wanting people from their own side to take up positions. It doesn't matter what God is saying. That's exactly number one issue that inspired the book. So when I was denied that um, position, and God told me not to fight, to keep quiet and just separate myself from the whole thing. Then I separated myself and I stayed where God asked me to stay. That was number one. Number two was in 2017 when evangelist Reinhard Bonke came to Nigeria for his last crusade. So, right in front of us, there was a passing the torch conference. After passing the torch conference, so we were all there when he handed over the ministry he built for the whole of a whole number of years, all he labored to work for. He passed this whole ministry into the hands of an American young man who is from Germany. Then he passed on this whole thing to um, an American young man. There was no tribal sentiment. There was no church politics. There was no sentiment. There was no. So I watched all of these things, and it touched me. And I decided that with the help of God, I am going to put down something to make sure that will correct this thing. Learning from the example of Reinhard Bonke, Evangelist Reinhard Bonke, and then passing it down to the people through a book, so that people, leaders, church kingmakers, as I call them, and the people who are involved in choosing in appointing leaders should also see and learn and make or take corrections. So these are the two things that inspired the name of that book, Passing the Torch. So I think that answers it in a nutshell.
Okay, so you're saying that you was a victim of someone was supposed to pass the ministry down to you, but instead
Yes,
they passed it to someone else.
yes, because
Was it that relative that they passed it to
no,
instead of you?
it was a case of tribal sentiments. Tribal sentiments. I am coming from another tribe. They
Okay,
are
gotcha.
coming from another tribe.
Uh-huh.
So they swore by all they can, all they have, that
Uh-huh.
nobody will get into that office except someone from their own tribe.
Okay.
That's exactly
Oh,
what happened. Okay,
okay.
um, can we switch over to can I switch over to the laptop? No, no, no. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. I will tell you when I'm over to the laptop so that we can go over there. Go ahead.
Okay, so why did you want to pay a tribute to Evangelist Bunky?
Okay. I wanted to pay a tribute. Like you saw on Amazon, the first the first edition of this book has the picture of Evangelist Bonke on it. So the second edition does not have the picture. So the reason why I want to pay a tribute to him in that book was the just one single act. And what was that? The way he listened to God. When he was giving testimony, how God, how God, when God came to him and asked him to choose his successor, that his time is coming up. And he asked God, who is going to succeed me? And God pointed out to a young man, and he obeyed God without questioning. He obeyed God without asking questions. He obeyed God without looking at his wife, his children, and other people that may be around him at that point. So this is one thing. And again, if you go back to the video is on YouTube when he was praying for when he was praying for Evangelist Daniel Kolenda, when he was handing over to the young man, he said one thing. He said, "The Lord told me that the anointed must be appointed." Let me say it again. He said, "The Lord told me that the anointed must be appointed." And he obeyed that instruction. That is the striking, that's one of those things that struck me and made me to pay a very huge tribute to him through that book or using that book.
Okay, so you didn't know him personally, or you never met him before?
Yeah, I met him, but not one on one. We were all there in 2017. In fact, I was one of the publicity team. We publicized the crusade all around the city. So
Right.
we one on one, I didn't see him, but we stand and look and watching him on the stage preaching. So we are that close, but for meeting him one on one, I was not able to do that because of protocols and all that. So that is that's the case.
Okay. So, well, let's jump into your book a little bit. So, we're not going to disclose everything that's in the book because we want them to actually go out and purchase the book. They
Yeah.
may need to be guided about what to do when the torch is not passed to them, or when something goes wrong, when they know that God has called them to do something, and it doesn't go the way that they think that it doesn't go the way that God said that it should go, because man decided to do things their way, right? So we're just going to pull out a couple of things from the book and have you just explain it just a little bit, so they can get like just a little gist of what's going on in the book. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about a lot of things that's going on in the church in the book. You talked about the way that we're dressing in the church. You talked about the way that the pastors are going to other things, and this just a whole bunch of going on in the church. So
Yes.
I noticed in the book that you kept asking God questions. So do you feel as though God is not going to do anything about what is going on in the church today?
Yes, God is going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
God is going to do something, and when God
Mm-mm.
go,
Okay, you don't have no sound.
go back to the other. Go back to the
Yeah, you don't have any sound.
okay. Check it right now. I think you should have some.
Jesus. Say something. You don't have any sound.
God is going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
God will definitely do something, and then throughout the ages, you understand that When God wants to do something, he will always use a man. And God is looking for a man to use to do things. So, and that is why, I believe that God gave me that assignment, because it wasn't like this is what I, planned to do or what I wanted to do. But coming through the journey from where I was denied of an opportunity and a position to, being among the officials of the Handboke Crusade in 2017. So I believe that God will really do something, and that is my heart desire. That is my heart cry, because if God didn't do something, the church already somehow, I won't say dead, but already somehow, down the below. That if God didn't do something and the passing the church is being done wrongly or wrongly, I believe it will continue to affect the church. It will continue to kill the church, and that is why I believe God will do something, and God will definitely do something using this book. That is the main reason why this book was written, to be able to bring in this information, bring this knowledge to the leaders, to the church leaders, and to the leaders in general. One thing, Reinhard Bonnke, when he wanted to, conduct his last crusade, God specifically told him to go to Nigeria. The Brazilians were calling on him to come. The Brazilians promised to foot every bill to make sure that crusade to make sure the crusade took place in Brazil. But Reinhard Bonnke, being a man who loves to obey God, said no and decided to take that crusade down to Nigeria. And I believe that that is to teach the Nigerian church leaders a lesson. And unfortunately, a lesson that they didn't learn. You can see where I put it in that book. A lesson that they didn't learn. They didn't learn the lesson. God wanted to teach the Nigerian church that passing the church must not be somebody that is, must not be, maybe church leadership must not be given to somebody who you love, your favorite, your child, your wife, or someone else outside the man whom God chose. So that is it. So that is a lesson, I believe, because throughout the whole crusade, as Reinhard Bonnke was preaching up until when he handed over to evangelist Daniel Kolenda, one thing kept coming up to me. I kept seeing one thing, that God brought this crusade. God brought evangelist Reinhard Bonnke to Nigeria to open up the eyes of especially the African church leaders. Let me not, narrow it to Nigeria. The church leaders in Africa, because this issue of tribalism, nepotism, and all that is rampant. They do it carelessly. They don't care. So I believe that God brought this man here to conduct this crusade here, to be able to do what? Teach them, open their eyes, to tell them that yes, this is how to obey me, this is how to do things, this is how to take instruction from me concerning my will and what I want to do, I want the people, leaders, to do in my church. But I can assure you, unfortunately, the lesson wasn't learned. So sad. So sad.
Okay. So what do you think? Why do you think the people that are being passed the torch wrongly? Why don't you think they won't go to God for themselves to find out like what's really going on? To seek Him to hear His voice.
Can you hear me?
You got a very bad echo.
Okay, okay. Wasn't coming up. Okay, we can continue. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear the question?
Yeah, I said,
Jesus.
come up, come
Hallelujah.
up.
Okay, so the people that are getting the torch passed to them, why don't you think they're going to God for themselves to see if this really what God wants to be done?
Come again, come again. I didn't get that.
So you having trouble hearing me?
No, no, I'm hearing you clearly. I'm getting you clearly. Come up, come up. I'm hearing you.
Okay, one more time.
Okay. Okay.
What do you think is going to stop what's going on?
Um, the only thing that can solve what is going on is when we begin to speak up. When we begin to speak up, that's why if there are people who are listening, I encourage them to go look for this book. When you are listening to us here, and when you read your book, when you read the book, or as you are listening to us here, you will be enlightened. I'm still going to say more things why people should or must read that book. But to your question, this book, when people read, their understanding will be opened. They will be enlightened. Then they will begin to understand what God wants exactly from them or from their leaders. Because right now, there is a lot of, in this part of the world, there is a lot of, disobedience to the instruction of God. There's a lot. I can tell you, I've been in the ministry for a while. I can tell you that people go into the church to lobby for positions. People go into the church to buy positions. People go into this church for whatever reasons, you know, but all these things have one way or the other, the whole thing is affecting the church. The whole thing is affecting the presence and the spirit of God in our church.
Okay, so in the book you began to talk about um the leaders going to the kingdom of darkness to seek
Yeah.
power. Why do you think they do that?
Yes, if you talk about this now, it is not only in this part of the world. This is obtainable everywhere in the world. We've seen leaders from across the world who are into Freemason. We see, I don't want to mention them, but we see so many of them from America, from Canada, from Europe, who are big, great leaders in the church, but they are into Mason, Freemason. There are people, great leaders in Africa, who are also into that Freemason. But according to you, to answer your question, there's a way Christianity or church has been, they have turned it into something. It is no longer the business of God. It's now the business of people looking for fame, people who looking for money, people looking for, whatever reason, whatever thing they are looking for. So many people are going into the ministry for reasons best known to them. Many people are going to the ministry because they want people to respect them, they want the fame, they want the money, they want to be known worldwide. And then, just like Jesus Christ, it was the miracles of Jesus Christ that announced him. It was a miracle of Jesus Christ that announced him. It was a miracle of Jesus Christ that solidified the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, on the same level, these men here, some of these leaders, not all of them, for them to get recognized, for them to get the fame, for them to get the money, for them to get whatever reasons they enter into the ministry, for, so long as God didn't call them, there won't be that miraculous power. God will not equip them with that miraculous power. So for them to do miracle, for them to walk the work of signs and wonders, for them to do those miraculous signs in the church, since there is no backing of the power of God, they must go to get it somewhere. That is the pure truth. They must go to get it somewhere, because without prophecy, without miracle, they aren't going to get anywhere. Nobody is going to listen to them. The fame and whatever they are looking for won't come. So that is why so many leaders go into the kingdom of darkness to get one power or the other, so that they can do some of these prophecies and some of these miracles, so as to be or become relevant. Some also go to the extent of arranging miracles. This is rampant here. Some leaders, some church leaders will go ahead and arrange miracles. Some will get people, pay them to behave, to act like the lame. Some act like the blind. Some will act, awesome. So one day I was watching on Facebook. I saw a minister, a pastor who was raising the dead. Do you know one of the reasons why I know that is faith is because myself, I have had experience of, out of the body experience, near what they call near death experience, when your body will be separated from your soul. When your soul will be separated from, I have had that experience. And when my soul came back to my body, I understood, I know how I feel, I know how the effect on my body for as long as a week or more than. So you cannot be raising the dead. You cannot be raising somebody from the dead, and that person will jump up and that person will stand up from there and start jumping up. That is a red flag. That shows you that is an arranged miracle. Because somebody who died, even if it is 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, and once the spirit comes back to the body, it takes it It takes time for the body and the spirit to unite as it is before. It takes time. You will feel the pains. You will feel the weakness in your bones. You will feel weak for at least a week or more before you get back to yourself. So when you see somebody who is raising the dead and the so-called dead person stood up, stands up from there and start jumping and praising God, that is a lie. That is a lie. It doesn't work that way. So
wow.
this is one of those. This is more of those things that make these leaders to go into the kingdom of darkness to look for power, so that they can. Because when God didn't call you into the ministry, listen to this. When God didn't call you into the ministry, you call yourself. It's like somebody who is going to, take up an assignment that somebody, didn't, you get into a place and start working, and nobody employed you, nobody called you. They aren't going to give you the equipment to do it. So the same thing, when you get into the ministry, God didn't call you. God is not going to back you up. You won't get the power. You won't get the needed, power for signs and wonders. So for them to, get into that realm, they must go and look for that power somewhere else. That is it.
Okay. Okay. So, so you've been through some ordeal of not getting the recognition that you that you were supposed to get. And so is that what makes you so passionate about getting your book out or writing this book and getting what Evangelist Bunky did out to others?
Yes, yes, yes. I believe that when God allow us to pass through some experience in life, He may, when they deny you what is rightfully yours, and God allow it to be, I believe that God allowed that to be so that He can use you to make corrections or to teach others.
Mm-hmm.
So, from my experience, I became very, very passionate to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that this thing is stopped. I don't know if it may not be too rampant in America there, but here it's too much. It's too rampant. They are
Mm-hmm.
doing it carelessly. They don't want to care. They don't want to know what people what people want to say. I know in America, if you do it anyhow, somehow, if you do it anyhow, people can leave your church. Everybody can stand up and go their ways, and then just become empty. But here, you see some people supporting things that doesn't supposed to be. That's what we have here. So
Mm-hmm.
that informed my passion for this. That makes me to become passionate for this. That made me to write this book. It took me some two, three. It took me some time to complete the books. At the time, I I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time also, after a year or thereabout of some more than that, God reminded me I have to go back to my computer and start looking for the manuscript. So when I saw it, I began to work on it again to make sure. And then um, this is not going to. I still have a lot of things to add to it. I just this this is the first edition. This is I'm going to bring the third edition by the third edition, which is I don't know when it's going to come out. But I let people make do with what is there now. But the third edition is going to have more information on it. But let people for now. That one I'm not promising it will come soon. It will come, but not soon. So for now, let people make do with what they have now. So that is it. That is it.
Okay. So, what do you want the readers to get out of this book?
You said, come again?
What do you want the people that read the book? What do you want them to get out of it?
Okay. This book, like if you look at the description, it says a concise manual for leaders, church leaders. If you look at the the the, the description, what I want is this, because I've sat down, just like I stated in that book, I've sat down to see the consequences of this very act in against the church. I've sat down to look at, understand the very consequences that this brings to the church. And I want that to stop. So I want people who are going to read this book to read this book. If you're not a leader, get it for your leader. If you are not a pastor, get it for your pastor. If you're not your church general overseer, make sure your church general overseer has a copy. Because what I want is that at the end of the founders or the leaders, ministerial lifetime, either by death or by retirement or by whatever way that leader want to leave the leadership of the church, that they will understand that how important it is for them to listen to the voice of God, for them to understand that the person that must be in that position must be somebody that God anointed and appointed. That's one. That's my only thing there. That people, my readers, or the people who are going to read this book should learn that, because the consequences of disobeying God in that aspect is very, very great. Very, very good. Not many churches will survive it. Not many churches will survive it. So, in answering to answer your question, this is what I want my leaders to understand. Just like as I said earlier, that by the time it is time to pass the torch, or change leadership in the church, that they will understand that they must obey God. They should understand that their own plans and purposes, their own choices, their own whatever they want to do at that point, they should discard it, put them aside, and face God and obey God for the sake of that church and the members. This is one thing I want my leaders to learn. That's it.
Okay, well, if you haven't heard, y'all, um, this is the book we're talking about here, Passing the
Yes.
Torch, and what he wants you all to do by it for your leader. If you're a leader, this is the book you need to be reading to learn about passing the torch the correct way.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, what is next for you as an author?
Oh, I have a lot of other works or a lot of other books that I want to add that I am in line for me to write. No, so now the next thing now, apart from other books, I have one. I've not started yet, but that will have to deal with hearing from God, but not but in a different way, different twist. You know, hearing from God. Not really hearing from God, but it's your voice. Do you have a okay? Look at what it is. It's going to be. Do you have a voice in the spirit? in the spiritual realm? Do you have a voice in the spiritual realm? Can you give an order on earth and the spiritual realm? The kingdom of darkness will stand still. That is the next bus stop. That's where we are going. So, but right now, the next thing right now is that based on this book, we are organizing. There's going to be a conference in January 30th, to be precise, 9 a.m. East Standard Time. We are going to discuss more on this topic. The topic, the theme of the conference is smooth transitions, the biblical approach to leadership change. So it's going to talk about this book. Leaders are going to come. There are 4 key leaders from the US that's going to speak. So everyone will come. Okay.
Yeah, I saw your flyer. So I see you have Prophetess Shalonda, Apostle Shalonda, speaking on that. Yeah, me and her are really good friends.
Yeah. It was through her that I got to know you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's a
I
very
thought
good.
maybe you saw the post in one of the groups.
Yeah, I know you through her page.
All through her page. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's been
Yeah.
she's been a friend, a wonderful friend for some time now.
Yeah, me and her went to middle school together. And we've been
Okay.
friends ever since. Yeah, she's a really good person. Yep. So we're not gonna hold you. We're not gonna hold you here. We thank you for coming here on Bless the Author. Um, you are supposed to be coming back to discussion of the book. We are here for it. We thank you for writing this book about this topic of passing the torch, because it is much needed in the world today, of how people is passing the torch to those who they feel like it should be passed to, instead of passing it to whom God is calling them to pass it to. So we say to you, keep doing God's work, keep moving for the kingdom, no matter what no matter what man has to say. You keep doing what God has called you to do. And so we're not going to hold you any longer. We're going to let you go. But we thank you here at Bless the Author for coming on.
All right. I thought, okay, just to say but a few words. Am I permitted?
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to say something, because I mentioned the consequences. I mentioned the good in that book. I mentioned the good and the consequences, the gains, the consequences of obeying God when it has to do with passing the torch.
Mm-hmm.
I want people who are listening or who are going to watch this letter to understand one thing. Understand that when you disobey God in passing the torch or changing leadership, remember, number one, God hates disobedience. And God, if you are going to rate disobedience, if you are going to rate sins, the Bible told us that disobedience is worse than witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you disobey God in whatever instruction God gives you, remember it's called disobedience, and God hates it. And God said it is worse than disobedience. God said it's worse than witchcraft. Some churches look at people. Some churches look at qualifications. Some churches will tell you that you have to prepare yourself before God can use you. But the God I know prepares the person He's going to use. So some people look at, are you a degree holder? Are you a professor? Are you whatever, qualifications the world offers. Like some churches here now, if you are not a graduate, you can't become anything in the church. Right here in Nigeria as it stands now. If you didn't go to school, no matter what your anointing is, no matter how huge your anointing is, nobody's going to consider it for anything. That is what we're seeing here. So, but one thing is this: if you reject whom God has anointed for the church, in time of trouble, who will you face? Just like, for example, David was anointed a king, and God took him after. No, let me start the way. David was a boy, and the family, took him to the bush to look after the sheep. There's a lesson there. There's a lesson there. The family took him. The family asked him to look after the sheep in the bush, and with that, God have to train him in the bush outside the knowledge of Samuel the prophet, outside the knowledge of his father, his mother, his brethren, outside the knowledge of the king Saul. It was a business between David and God. God was preparing him for a day, one day. And when that day came, we saw David. David appeared, and he became the savior that saved the armies of Israel and Israel as a nation from the hands of the Philistines. What if there's no David? What if there's no a man that's anointed like David, who will save the nation Israel? So also in the church, because whoever God is going to appoint, whoever God is going to anoint to be appointed, there are things God has imputed into the person for the work of the ministry inside that church. If you reject that person, who is going to stand, who is going to bring about the things that God will want to bring about into that church through that person? Who is going to bring it? So I would encourage everyone watching, do not disobey God when it has to do with leadership change. Do not obey God. Do not disobey God. Obey God as much as He commanded you. Obey God. Forget about dirty politics in the church. Forget about your own interests, your plans, your purposes, and whatever you want to do. Forget about it. Listen to God. And it will be a very great opportunity or a very great gain for the church. Thank you.
All right. We thank you. Once again, we thank you for coming on.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
Good night.
Thank y'all for taking the time out of y'all night to go on this journey with me. And if you haven't already, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time, you all be blessed and have a better night. Later.